From the world of Stephen King and Andy Muschietti, let's talk about Season 1 of It, Welcome to Derry, or also known as It, Welcome to Derry, Chapter 1. As this is a prequel series to the two movies, as we see the series return to Derry, Maine, that is this town lurking with long-buried evil beneath the surface. As we do see this follow a group of friends in 1962, as it traces the reign of a multidimensional entity in its current most horrific form, a murderous shape-shifting clown known as Pennywise. And with this series, it was an amazing prequel to the movies. It was interesting to see how Derry was in the 1960s, as I do believe that it explored that time era, that time frame pretty well, as there was just a lot of messed up stuff going around at that time. But at the same time, seeing how these kids were during that era, as it was pretty similar to how the kids were in the movie. So just seeing the similarities between I guess the two loser groups was pretty cool. But with just how Pennywise was in this, the dude continues to be a menace, but at the same time, he was probably more of a menace in this season compared to the movies. But I do want to say that the cast in this, they all did great in their roles. From this new group of kids, as we do see a connection to some stuff in the It movies with the parents of some of the Loser Club kids. As the one that stood out to me was Will Hanlon, but also the adults in this definitely stood out too, as there was just a lot going on. But with the adults, the one that stood out to me was Dick Hallorann. As we know, he is the guy in The Shining. And it is just interesting because I believe this has been confirmed to be a prequel to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, to which we also do see that continue with Dr. Sleep later on. But it was just fascinating to see how Dick was before the events of the hotel, and just seeing how his signing ability worked in this. Rich Salk, who plays Dick Hallorann in the It, Welcome to Derry series, did a phenomenal job in the role. And I remember at some point after Dr. Sleep, they were supposed to make a Dick Hallorann prequel movie. And at some point, they were supposed to make a prequel series of the Overlook Hotel for HBO Max when it first launched. After watching Chris Salk in the role, I would love to see them just do something more with Dick Hallorann. Whether if it's that movie, whether if it's a prequel series, I think a prequel series of him in the Overlook Hotel would be awesome. But now onto the dancing clown himself, Pennywise. Bill Skarsgård comes back in the role, and as always, he is just menacing but fun in the role to watch. Just seeing what he does as Pennywise this season, and just how Pennywise was this season, the dude was even more of a menace. And I remember that it was unknown for a while if Bill Skarsgård was actually going to come back as Pennywise. It was never confirmed until later on in filming they confirmed that he was coming back and that he was an executive producer for the series. And to be honest, without him in the role as Pennywise, I do not think it would have been as good. No one can pull off Pennywise as him. But with It, Welcome to Derry, how it dives into the lore was just fascinating. We do see some flashbacks to even more back in time. But just learning more about Pennywise, learning more about just why it stays in Derry was fascinating. And just how the Native Americans come into play with that. The lore for Derry is just very deep. The lore for Pennywise is just very deep. And we do see several plot lines in this. We see how it focuses on the kid group, the kids. And we do see it focus on some of the adults with the military subplot. And with it being in the 60s, there is this racial movement subplot going on too. And there is a little bit of a Native American subplot going on too, as they know what's going on. And I thought most of the subplots was very interesting and fascinating to watch. I will say though that the military subplot at times could just feel unnecessary, drag on a bit. I don't think it needed a stronger presence as it did in the series. But it is just interesting to see how this connects to other Stephen King projects. Having people learn that there is a Stephen King universe where most of the stories are connected one way or another in the same universe or in a multiverse. And that it was fascinating to see. But with this season, it does have its creepy moments, especially within the lore of Derry and Pennywise himself, of course. But at the same time, it is a super cool to see how it has connections to the two movies. How in a way it like plants the seeds for that, but yet also has nods to those movies. With a very interesting reveal in the finale of how this supernatural entity works. That was super fascinating to see, as it does plant the seeds for the next two seasons, so I cannot wait to see how those play out. Some flaws with this series is that, like I mentioned before, I do think that the military subplot could have been better. And there were some moments with the special effects. Yeah, the special effects did not look good at times, especially in the finale. But besides that, this was a really good first season to this series, and I cannot wait to see how season 2 plays out. I'm not entirely sure if season 2 is actually renewed yet, but I would love to get more Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. But overall, with It, Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Chapter 1, it was a great chapter, a great new addition to the It franchise, and this was a great start to a new HBO series. But have you seen It, Welcome to Derry Season 1? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below and follow me for more.